Hi, everyone. I'm Terry O'Keefe. I'm going to be your students' integrated math 2 teacher this term. Before we get into how the course goes, I think it's pretty important to acknowledge our current realities with our pandemic situation and just really, again, just underscore a few things, but then also I want to take a minute or two to just describe what the opportunities are in this situation. I think everybody would agree that the pandemic requires that we are nimble and ready for any ever-changing, the ever-changing environment that we are in. It's definitely uncertain. There's a ton of empathy that's needed just to help people experience some sort of normalcy or feel like they're progressing, especially when it comes to education, like they're learning. So I'm going to be empathetic towards that and gracious. So I know this term will be like no other before, but I also think that there's some opportunities here that we could capture. One, this is a great opportunity to focus more on the student, what they're learning, to become more competency-based, and also at the same time, figure out new ways to build relationships with students that and have that surround their ability to become competent and educated and provide somewhat of a normal experience. I know that students aren't coming onto campus and sitting in classrooms, and my heart aches for that situation because students go to school not just to learn concepts and facts of different disciplines and be scholars, but there's so much more here that students can take part in that just enriches their lives. So I'm going to be real empathetic to that, but I do believe that there's some good opportunities for us. A little bit about me real quick. I graduated in 1988, married my high school sweetheart. That's Jody O'Keefe there. And I know she teaches at Weimar Hills and was at Colfax Elementary before. And several of your children have communicated that they've had her as a teacher. I teach, and that's my son and my daughter. They both went to Colfax as well. So my wife, my son, and my daughter and I all went to Colfax. We're Falcons through and through. My daughter's at Lucasfilm now, out of college and working in San Francisco, and my son's a junior at UC Davis. I have taught science, math, computers, art, and I also this year am the curriculum and instruction coordinator with an emphasis in technology along with Sarah Schoepfer. I coached basketball, coached football, coach track currently, and that's a little bit about me. My teaching philosophy, definitely a growth mindset person. Take a situation of where you are and try to better it, not be a victim of your circumstance. Be willing to, like I said, be nimble and change direction and continue to try to take opportunities to grow. I think all students can learn. I think they can master whatever essential learning outcomes that you set together. I do believe in competency-based education where students' grades and successes in classes surround ability to be competent in whatever is essential. I do know humans are humans. Our school here would be just bricks and mortar and facilities and gyms and fields without the humans here. I do miss that greatly. Relationships are humongous, and probably one of the hardest things to do from a distance standpoint is to build a relationship. But I'm, like I said, growth mindset, trying to figure out ways to keep your children engaged and build relationships with them so we can foster the learning, build the trust, invest in each other, and do this thing we call high school. The need satisfying behavior is really interesting to me because everybody has a need to belong. Everybody has a need for fun. Everybody has a need for empowerment, and everybody has a need for freedom. But superseding all of that is our need for survival. And I know with the technology issues and fires and COVID and rolling blackouts and all of these things that are, cast upon us, and trying to, go to school and learn, the survival has to be met first. So I think we're going to try really hard to make sure we address that and get people to an area where, we meet them where they are and try to help them learn as much as they can. So that's my philosophy. The integrated Math 2 course itself, well, there's the curriculum, which is what you learn, and that's pretty straightforward. They're going to learn we're going to focus on 6 critical areas. There's some exponents and taking laws of exponents into rational exponents, right triangle trig. We're going to do some quadratic functions and revisit some linear functions. We're going to solve equations, inequalities of all those linear, exponential, and quadratic functions. Work with some basic probability, and then look at congruency and similarity when it comes to triangles. And believe it or not, that takes 18 weeks because there's a lot of detail in those 6 areas. The instruction is how we work together to make learning occur. So the whole teaching and learning part. A typical day, I'm not sure if it exists sometimes, but the old normal is no longer on the menu. And the growth mindset is, well, here we are, let's take the advantage and capture what we can in our current situation and make the best of it and make it effective. So there are 2 types of learning systemically that's going to go on. There's the synchronous and the asynchronous, and there's opportunities within both. The synchronous learning occurs, as you already know, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We're all together. We meet on Google Meet. We have our lessons. We break out into breakout rooms. We have question and answer sessions. We are working on doing different types of lessons except for just direct instruction. There's going to be different types of grouping, some interactive lessons that we will do over, the digital pipe, so to speak. And those all occur Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. The asynchronous days are Wednesdays. We check in, we make plans to work together in small groups or one-on-one and get everybody caught up and kind of come up for air and just have the opportunity to make sure that we're hitting the marks and people get to inquire about concepts and lessons and solidify their understandings on Wednesdays. The assessment piece, how you're measured, is what you would typically call the testing area, right? It's basically how I'm going to check in on your kids. There's 2 types. There's formative assessment. It's a little bit more ongoing. We're still focusing on learning goals. It's dynamic. I'll check in, we'll reassess, we'll focus in on a particular goal or a particular essential learning outcome. They're a little bit more action oriented, meaning like I'm going to engage the student to demonstrate that they understand the essential learning outcome. They look like quizzes, ELO assessments, where we might look at one ELO in particular and just hone in on whether or not your son or daughter knows how to do that assessment or outcome. And then they could also be projects. The summative assessments, there's 2. There's your 9-week midterm and your 18-week final. And the goal of that is to evaluate what they've comprehended over that time. It's what they've learned at that particular time. We're calling that the benchmark, okay? Then how grades are going to work, they're going to be based on competency with the essential learning outcomes using a 4-point scale. The scale goes from exceeding mastery to remediation. So if you have a standard and you're exceeding that standard, your mastery, you're mastering the outcome, you're 100% good to go. Mastery, here's the standard, hit the standard, you've demonstrated that you understand what you're doing. That's what we're saying is mastery. Near mastery and remediation, that means not yet. You're not quite there yet. I can't really justify passing students along to subsequent levels if they're not at the mastery level for the essential learning outcomes. So we'll continue to work and remediate and get students to the level where they've mastered the essential learning outcomes. Grades always are going to reflect the learning of their content. Even though effort is amazing and it will help you learn, you can't really master anything without a little bit of effort or a lot of effort, depending on what it takes for you to get to the level you want to get to. And then grades are always going to be based on the most recent achievement. It's not going to be an average of one first time you took a test and the third time you took a test. It's not going to be an average. It'll be your most recent achievement. You're going to have several opportunities. And then I'm not doing extra credit because credit is credit. And so it needs to reflect what you know above and beyond just your effort. The resources that are there for you, probably the simplest one, the back burner. I'll start with the back burner is the website, the upper right-hand part that says Integrated Math 2. That's my website. It kind of houses all of the resources if you want to get to a particular handout or whatnot. One way to get it is through that website. Probably the richest thing we're going to use, the most prevalent thing we're going to use is that Canvas learning management system. So students should be in Canvas. Grades are going to be done in Canvas. Assignments, calendar, communication happens, email, all happens through the learning management system called Canvas. I am not going to be using Google Classroom. Canvas is much more robust. It takes a little bit to learn. It's got a learning curve to it, but once you understand the learning curve, it has a lot of opportunities for you to be able to communicate and house work, turn in work, look at grades, and so on and so forth. Google Meet, I think, is the video conferencing that is an incredible resource compared to even 6-7 months ago, where Google Meet was not utilized by very many people, especially in education. Now has become the go-to in terms of how we communicate. They've responded really well with the amount of add-ons, extensions, the different tools you can use to communicate with Google Meet. So that's going to be kind of the starting point. And then the conferencing will be used not just to communicate, but to interact with both the teacher, myself, each other, and to do activities and to, like I said, communicate. So those are the resources. I'm very hopeful that this term goes well. I know it would be foolish to say that there aren't going to be hiccups, that I think it's foolish to say, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, but I am really taking that growth mindset attitude towards helping learning occur, which is the paramount goal. And along that way, I'm going to invest in not just the competency of your child, but how they're doing along the way. I'm going to invest in them as a person and try to relate to them. And I know it's going to be a little bit challenging from time to time. However, I think it's a really important investment, education that is. And I think if there's a will, there's a way. And I'm praying that we come back soon to something that resembles normalcy. If you have any questions, please email me, and I'm hopeful that we have a great fall term in 2020.